Hello, everyone. Welcome to the 5th episode
Yes, I think so.
of the 365 coffee chat on adoption.
More like the coffee chat on 365 adoption.
Okay, so do you have coffee?
I do. Thanks. You bought.
That's right.
I appreciate it.
I'm Daniel Glenn.
I am Sarah Haase.
And this show is all about discussing, while we drink coffee, user adoption in Microsoft 365.
Correct.
Yes. So we've had a few episodes already
We have.
covering the pitfalls, covering the how to roll out an adoption program. We covered
How
a lot
to
of
do
stuff.
a pilot adoption, user adoption, innovative ideas, how to run successful programs,
Yeah.
right? Run user groups. We've talked about a wide variety of things.
Yes, we have. So go check those out. If you're already watching this on YouTube, then you know that it is there. Probably if you look in the top right corner, I think it's that way, you will see a little information. You can click that and see the rest of our of the episodes. So, but for this episode,
Right.
we are here live at.
We're in Seattle this time.
Yes, we are.
We do move cities.
We do move cities.
For these shows, we are in Seattle for SharePoint Fest.
SharePoint Fest, yes, and we've been having a great time. At least I have.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so for this episode, I think I hear a lot of people describe adoption in different ways and have a different take on how to actually do adoption in their organization. So would it be okay, Sarah, if we talk about the misnomers or urban myths of Office 365 user adoption?
That would be fantastic, as well as things like the unicorns that don't actually exist, the thoughts and beliefs that will not get you to the utopia you seek. All of those things, I think, and we've come up with a list of several that we're going to put out there, we're going to talk about, and we'll share the myth or the misnomer, and then we're going to debunk it.
Debunk it.
Debunk it, bust
So
it.
the first one we're going to talk about was, I think, a good one suggested on the social medias.
That's right. Do you want to say by whom?
Daryl?
Daryl.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Daryl, his suggestion was, this quote is from him: "We hire smart people. They'll figure out how to use Office 365 for themselves."
Brilliant, isn't it?
I have heard it many times. We don't need to train. We don't need to do user adoption activities because people are smart. We only hire smart people, and they'll just figure it out.
Right, and I almost think that, completely agree, I've heard it many times myself, and I think that you could really almost split this one into two, right? Because we hire smart people, right? Well, of course we hire smart people, but we shouldn't assume that being smart makes you smart at everything and that you have the luxury of time to do all the things that you're smart at as well. So I think that that's one thing, right? So I absolutely think we should call our users smart, but it's simply, we shouldn't over-assume that they have the interest, they have the time, and they are technology, have a desire to be technology smart. Not everyone has the desire to excel in the same things or to apply to learning new technology. So I think that's part one. And then they'll figure it out for themselves. Some of your users will figure it out for themselves because they're intrinsically motivated, they're internally motivated to be able to learn, figure things out for themselves. They enjoy that level of mastery, right? Mastering features and capabilities. But to say they'll figure it out for themselves alienates the people who would actually like a helping hand and figure that out. Maybe they learn by having coffee and sitting down and chatting with someone. Maybe they learn by going to training, or they prefer an instructor-led training experience, or they prefer to watch a video. Or give me a set of getting started quick steps, right? So we don't want to make gross over-assumptions.
Concept of without instruction, people will take clues from whatever it is, the technology, and they'll figure it out.
Right.
And yes, that there is portions of that is true, but one of the biggest, and I'll say, and maybe you can come up with others, but one of the biggest issues with this is they'll figure it out the way they want to figure it out. And is that the proper way? Is that the way that you want your organization to use that technology, to use that functionality for the best of your company? Or is it that the way they figure it out is just the best way for them or the most lazy way?
Well, and I think that this is a really interesting point. And let's talk about Yammer for a minute, right? So many organizations roll out Yammer, and generally they should have some use cases for what they want Yammer to help them achieve. In many cases, I think that's providing the employees with a platform to be able to ask questions, connect with people they do know and people they don't know in their own organization, provide praise and things like that. What are one of the most popular Yammer groups in almost any company?
The social aspects of
the social aspects, the pictures of people's pets, or the cooking group are generally the most popular. Now, people will oftentimes, if there is a group for that, or if there's not, they'll go out and create one. They figure that out for themselves, right? Oftentimes we, as implementers, we don't go out and create those cooking groups, those video gaming groups, right? The Marvel superheroes group, the motorcycle riding group. We don't tend to create those. They figure it out. Why? Because they're motivated. They have a desire to connect with other people on it. That's great. But does figuring out how to post to the cooking group deliver the use case value to our organization we were hoping to achieve from Yammer, or do we maybe need to do more? Is there a gap that we need to close to help them understand how to apply what they value, which is connecting with other people about cooking and pets, to the business need at hand?
Well, right, and so it's actually, yes, they'll figure it out. They can use Yammer to post because they wanted to post about their cat or whatever pets, right? But then how do you apply that to your business activities? Yes, they'll know how to post, but are they posting correctly? Are they posting in threads, or are they posting a new message every time, right? I mean, that's just one thing that yes, they'll figure out how to post, but will they be posting correctly?
And you have to decide what, you have to have some high level range of what is good, what is better, what is best, and what is good enough, right? If people are engaging on Yammer, yes, they didn't reply to the right level in the thread, they replied some other way, but they're learning. Are they moving steps in the right direction? So we need to think about that level of, that bar. When you're teaching your kids how to tie their shoes, right, is the expectation that they get it perfect the first time, or do you celebrate the trying? Until as a part of them learning how to be able to fully tie their own shoes. And I think that that's important to think about when it comes to these technologies and our users. Set appropriate expectations and cheer them on the way.
Fantastic. But what about the fallacy of if you build it, they will come? And so this is a popular saying. So if you build it, they will come. As we apply it to adoption of technologies within the business. Is that true, Sarah?
It's an interesting question because it depends on what you build, who you build it for, and by the way, how you tell them about it.
Which are adoption activities.
Which are adoption activities. So here's an interesting example. I've run user groups at many different organizations, and every one of them has entirely different cultural behaviors about how those users want to engage in the user group. I've worked for very, very large companies where we struggled initially, and it took us years to get to the point of having 60 or 80 people attend the user group, but they would all attend in person. They wanted to be able to chat beforehand. They all attended in person. I've gone to other companies, somewhat smaller, where out of the gate, we had 100, 150 people attending every user group meeting, but they did not want to go to the conference room, even if it was one floor from where they worked. They wanted to join via Teams or Skype for Business and be able to enter into the chat all of their questions. So then we needed someone to moderate. Don't care which of those models, both of those models work. And at the end of the day, as a practitioner, it isn't up to us to decide what we prefer. It's up to us to help assist our employees to be able to fulfill what they prefer and help teach them how to learn.
Well, and I think I see this a lot in intranets. where it's, oh, if we build this wonderful, beautiful, feature-rich intranet,
And it looks pretty.
and it looks gorgeous, then everyone will come there, they will use it, and they will be empowered to do their job and do more, right?
Correct. How often does that work that way?
For the first week, it's the shiny, pretty thing. But then it's, okay, I'm going to get back to my job, which is what I was doing before I had the shiny, pretty intranet.
Right.
And even if that shiny, pretty intranet could help me do my job, if I'm not engaged, and again, it's not training, it's not just training, it's more than that. But if I'm not engaged with, here's how it can help you, and here's why we did it. It wasn't because we wanted to spend money on a pretty page to land on.
Right.
It was about helping our employees to know what's going on. It's a communication device for the organization, but why that's important to them.
And it's the what's in it for me and what is the value proposition, and them taking a look at it and then coming back to it again, right?
Yep.
Because at the end of the day, one of my favorite user adoption quotes basically says, adoption can't be mandated. It is a choice that the individual users have to make.
Right.
And yes, they might go to your brand new, beautiful, gorgeous intranet to be able to take a look at it. But at the end of the day, 2 weeks later, 3 weeks later, 4 weeks later, it's the weather widget on the intranet. It's the company news and the CEO's update for Monday, right? That they're
Right.
going out to look at, or the cafeteria menu. So we have to think about that value proposition and make sure that's baked in there. And there might be some other great content and features there, but if we don't figure out how to communicate and share that with the users in a way that's meaningful for them, how will they know?
Well, and another, I think, myth that goes along with an intranet specifically is this idea that page loads, clicks, whatever, equals it's a valuable thing for the employees for two major reasons. And
Right.
what I see, one is what you just mentioned. Yes, the internet's valuable because there's this one thing that we all go and do: stock price, or the video for the town halls that we happen, the message from the leadership of about direction or about whatever. That's one. The other is we made it the default page when we load our browser on the computer.
Correct, and then we count the number of page loads as being something that shows our value.
Yep. So I think that's just one that is a myth. And you could apply that to other technology too, of when you see the number of posts in Teams or Yammer, or people are creating dashboards in Power BI, just because they're doing those activities doesn't mean they're adopting.
Correct, or driving business value. And we saw this oftentimes in SharePoint, because many companies that I've talked to thought that their number of SharePoint sites, number of documents stored in OneDrive is another popular one.
Yeah.
They believe that that represents business value. And at the end of the day, a volume of SharePoint sites is a volume of SharePoint sites, and a number of files stored in OneDrive are just files. It's what we're doing with that content, it's how easily we can access it that adds the value. The fact that that content and that blob exists out there in SharePoint land or in OneDrive doesn't intrinsically, it shows consumption of space, not value.
Well, right, because those files in OneDrive could be, I dragged every file from my computer or from the network drive that's been there for 14 years
Correct.
into OneDrive. Well, that doesn't necessarily bring value to the company if a majority of those documents are not being used at all. So,
Correct.
We are in this evergreen model with Microsoft technologies in Office 365 where there are updates all the time.
Yes.
And I think as a part of this, this mentality we have is, well, we've heard about, or we can see something, the way a product is being positioned, that there's going to be this awesome feature coming.
Right.
Maybe we're at a conference and someone stands up on stage and says, look at this, they do a great demo like Dan Holm did here.
That's SharePoint home sites.
Yes,
Yes.
your wonderful feature, it's not here yet, but once it hits this killer feature, as soon as we get it, the tool will sell itself. As soon as we
Boom.
get home sites, as soon as we, hub sites that we've gotten, hub sites are going to revolutionize the intranet, and we don't need to do any adoption activities whatsoever to help people learn how to even use them effectively.
Yeah, it's the theory that background blur in Teams meetings is going to sell Teams and change the way people are just going to glom onto it or they're going to adopt it. All of those features, by the way, are awesome.
Yeah.
Hubs, awesome. Home site's awesome. Love the background blur. Was just using it yesterday. But all of those features are great. But it's the fallacy of thinking that we're one killer feature away from solving the need for user adoption. That I think is the challenge, right? And that's what it boils down to, because features are fantastic. But again, if your users, they're not all created identically. They come with different technology capability sets and desires. They come with different natural tendencies to adopt change, right? From your early adopters to your late majority to your laggards, right? That are much slower to adopt. These features may change the lives of some of their users. And yes, they may share it with everyone that they know. And yes, you're going to get some adoption that way. But waiting for that one feature and saying, when, and I'm going to use background blur as an example. Once background blur gets here, we're moving all of our meetings to team meetings, and it will change the face of how we do meetings here, and we don't need to do anything else other than get that feature. And that's a fallacy.
It is, and this whole idea that, we can have background blur. I'll keep using that. And people will know how to use it effectively. They'll know what to do. And it's not just blurring. It's doing things like having landscapes behind you. I mean, stuff like that. For this feature, what is the way you should use it? When is it appropriate for you to use? And things like that when you just say, okay, it's there, but then how do you educate people that it's there? I mean, it's not just we get this killer feature and it's done. People will just start using it without being told how to and shown what's going on.
So I think something really important that we need to come back to, and this has been threaded through many of our other episodes, but from a user adoption perspective, it's very important that we look at our company and our organization and our business goals, and that we look at our users, and we start to provide profiles or personas for those users, and not all of them, but break down your user base into a group of I would say 7 ± 2 types of users, right? You've got your developers, you've got your business line users, you got your project managers and your PMO. Break it down into the top 7 ± 2 types of users in your organization. And you have to think about, what do they need in order to do their job? And what are their pain points? And how could we highlight Office 365 applications for these users in a way that they want to hear about it. And the popular example that I give is that Microsoft Flow, love the tool, did a session on Flow yesterday. My target market for Flow is not 100% of my user base. I don't expect 100% of my users are going to leverage Flow. I expect 100% of my users are going to leverage email and Outlook. I expect a very high percentage, probably over 90%, are going to leverage OneDrive and or SharePoint to store their files. So it's important to think about, what types of users do you think you want to leverage Flow? How do those users learn? What business needs do they have? And when you start to understand that, then you can start to apply some of these methodologies and user adoption in a targeted way. You also have to think about your user types, because we have our cowboys. Those are the people that say, give me the functionality, give me the feature, I'll figure it out for myself. Even better, give me admin privileges to everything, and you won't hear from me again. I will go out and do all of the fun stuff, and I'll figure it all out, and I'll come back and show you what I built, right?
Right.
And those are users that we need to accommodate. But we also have the people that are scared of leaving their shared network drives and uploading a file to OneDrive and sharing it with someone is a scary proposition. So we need to support those users as well.
Right.
We shouldn't treat everyone as a cowboy, but we also shouldn't treat everyone as an enthusiast or everyone as a technology laggard.
Yep, I agree. So, have you ever been told, Sarah, that you are going to be now the owner of like a technology, or the person responsible for managing an area or something, and that the organization is glad you volunteered? So
Yes,
the fallacy of that,
Voluntold.
people that are voluntold.
Yes.
Basically, you're told that you are now volunteering to help lead the organization's efforts to adopt a technology. That is an okay method. In fact, it may be a great method to making sure that the adoption activities are done well.
And let me preface this by saying a heavy amount of sarcasm. I especially like it when I'm voluntold that I'm going to do this, regardless of my interest, and that I'm voluntold over email.
Yes. So
Works great.
And I don't think we can say anytime someone is voluntold to do something, it won't be a success. That's
Correct.
not what I'm saying. I don't think that's what you're saying. But what we're saying is you can't force someone to be what you were talking about, a champion. A champion is someone who believes in what they're doing and wants other people to believe in it too, and wants to help those other people along the way to adopt that technology. And so you can't force someone to be a champion, number one. But number two, if you do have champions that, they are actually excited about it, but you don't empower them to be able to help their fellow associates to take on those technologies and adopt them correctly, if you don't give them the support that they need, they're not going to be successful either.
Correct, and I see this, I talk a lot about champion programs from a user adoption perspective, and there's a lot on my blog, and Microsoft actually has some great materials that we can look up and provide the URL in the video when we post it out on YouTube. But Microsoft has some excellent guidance on champion programs, and one of their primary points is this one, that champion programs work best when the champions are people that have a buy-in, have a desire, and see the value in what they're trying to champion. Because otherwise, if they're being told, please champion this, frankly, they could not care about that. And if they don't care about it, are they going to be a great champion? And I've seen companies do it all kinds of ways, from pulling out and going to the heads of every department and say, give me 3 people who are going to be champions, and then those people are voluntold. Or they'll go and they'll say, give me everyone at this job grade level or with this job title in the company, and they're voluntold. And it isn't that those champion programs are inherently bad. I just don't see them delivering the user adoption lift and the value of the volunteer-based champion programs, where you, as a practitioner, invest in those champions, you educate those champions, you try and lift them up, you celebrate them, and then they go out proactively because they're inspired by the technology, they see the vision, they want to help other people with it, and they're going out there spreading the news. A much better scenario.
Wonderful. The last one that I think it's last, I don't know, we might think of another one, but the last one that I can think of that is prevalent within organizations that I work with is this idea that organic growth is the best and only way for a technology to be adopted. And what I'm saying here is that, and I guess the way I've seen it applied in organizations is that what they'll do is they'll say, okay, I'm going to target either a user base or a department, let's say, and we're going to do some adoption activities. We're going to train people up. We're going to have some mentorship. We're going to show them how to use the tool and how we want them to use the tool and apply that to their work, et cetera, right? All those adoption activities. And then we're done, because they're going to use it, and then that organic growth, meaning that Sally Sue and John Smith, they're going to learn how to do it. They're going to and take that technology and use it in their everyday. It's going to be so great that they're going to tell their associates in other departments, and those other departments are then going to adopt it by themselves, and it's going to be totally organic.
A firestorm of adoption.
Firestorm.
I think that's great. I've actually been at organizations where we've been able to inspire that kind of organic, or that it becomes, it grows on its own, right? And the circle widens, and it's the ripple effect, and we get more people interested. It takes an incredible amount of positive user adoption effort and enthusiasm to get to that point. right?
Right.
And again, this isn't about the proliferation of SharePoint sites, right? This is
Right.
about the proliferation of user excitement about the tools. And if we can get there, fine. But I think people need to understand that it is not an urban myth to think that you can get to that point where users are that excited,
Right.
but there's a ton of work that goes into it. And user adoption isn't a temporary effort, it isn't a project. It is an ongoing service that starts well before you roll out or implement Office 365, and user adoption initiatives stay until the day you are sunsetting the technology in your organization. There is
Right.
never an end. You're never done. You're never done educating your users. You're never done lifting people up and inspiring people.
Right, I think, and that's a huge point there that I don't think people understand is inspiring people is not, here, I'm going to show you this technology, it's great, it's fantastic, you've got it, you seem excited, I'm done with you, I'm going to move on and keep going. Inspiring people is something that is an ongoing activity. When we're talking, especially when talking about adopting technology or adopting ways to do things that will be best for our organization and for our teams.
Yeah, and I recommend thinking about it like a sales cycle, right? If you're in sales, you always have to have a pipeline for new people to come in to a sales cycle, but you also want to pay attention to your existing customers in the hope that you're going to be able to sell them more things in the future. User adoption is exactly the same way. You have to be able to serve your existing users, the ones that are already engaged and bought in, to keep that momentum going, but you also have to have a healthy pipeline of new users because you're always going to have new employees coming into your company, people shifting roles, people just starting to hear about Office 365 and suddenly they want to be hooked or they really want to learn more. So just like the sales cycle and pipeline, you need to have a user adoption pipeline and it never ends.
Yes, I agree with you 100%. It is not an effort to one and done it. It is not we've done it and then we moved on. One point you've touched on right there that I think a lot of people forget is turnover. Every organization has turnover. And while you may get a high percentage of adoption in your organization right now, what's that going to look like in 6, 9 months, 12 months when new people have come? And I say turnover, and what that means is people leaving and then people coming. But it's also growth as your company grows. Maybe you have a very low turnover, but you're hiring more people. Well, those new people, you haven't gone through those adoption activities. So it is, even just for them, it's an ongoing effort. But earlier I mentioned the evergreen model where more and more is happening in this space where we're getting new features, but also features are changing. Well, we need to be helping our associates figure out not only how to use it, but how to apply it within the organization. Just because they know how to use Teams right now doesn't mean they're going to know how to use Teams in 6 months.
Correct.
They'll have the same, the basic features down. They'll have the features that they learned and that they've been using, but there's going to be even more features, even more part of the technology that we can help them adopt and could totally take our organization or even small parts of our organization to the next level.
Right. So I think that from a user adoption perspective, right, key messaging at the end, there are a lot of urban myths, there are a lot of fallacies. Here's the thing, user adoption is possible. It will look different at every organization due to your organization's culture, the personality of your users, their level of technology adeptness, their willingness to change and grow with the changing technology needs, and you are never going to be done. When it comes to user adoption, you're going to have to continue to invest, continue to be creative in finding new ways to connect with, inspire, and educate your users. So coming and listening to podcasts like this, attending events like SharePoint Fest Seattle, hearing about the user adoption ideas that are working at other companies, trying them out. The ideas are ideas. They don't have to be perfect. The important thing is to try, iterate, but continue.
Right. Fantastic.
I think that's a good place to end.
I think so. So where can people find you, Sarah Hazy, on the interwebs?
Blog.splibrarian.com, and you will put it on the bottom of the screen, I'm sure.
It probably will be there.
Right, or at Sarah Hazy on Twitter.
And you can find me at danielglenn.com and on Twitter as Daniel Glenn as well. You could find the full playlist of the coffee chat on 365 Adoption by going to go.re365.show. That's for regarding 365, by the way. Go.re365.show/coffee chat.
Right, and for those of you that are here live, we have recorded this podcast. Our producer here will get it ready to go, and it'll be rolling out, and we'll be posting it on YouTube probably within a couple of weeks, I think. It's usually what we do, and if you follow Daniel and I on Twitter, you'll see us reference it there with the link. We'll also add the hashtag for SPFest C for Seattle.
Yep.
And then I'll do a blog post as always.
Oh,
so
as
if you follow
always.
my blog, you'll get that as well.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone, for being here live. Thank you, everyone, for watching. And thank you, Sarah.
Thank you, Daniel. Have a good day, everyone.
Bye-bye for now.
Bye.